holding a seat.
It's okay for me.
Because we want to make sure
I'll live with it. I think I'll move up front.
There you go.
Okay. Follow the guidelines. Thanks for doing that, and then we're going to have to monitor how many people we have. Thanks.
Kick me out.
Could you hand this phone to that gentleman with the blue tie? Here you go. Here we go. Thank you so much.
I'll leave that there until I find out if they're going to kick me out of this seat or
Okay.
not.
It might just make you move down. I don't know.
So you don't want to sit here? Oh, it's
No, I do.
Listen,
I'm gonna, in case they tell me, no, I have people sitting there.
Maybe that one will be, but I think you can probably move over one.
Okay, everybody. My name is Tom Pike, and I am the Congressman's District Director. Welcome to his monthly in-person town hall meeting. Obviously, we're jammed, which reflects what's going on in our country right now. And we really thank you for participating in democracy by being here today. In order to fit in as many questions and comments as we can when we start at 12:30, I'm going to kind of go over a little bit of the ground rules right now to think about. When the congressman gets here, he'll do his his what's going on in DC, and then we're going to get into going around and getting questions and comments. We're going to have 3 microphone runners. One in that aisle, one here, and one over there. We're going to have Yvonne, Nicole, and Hip, our staffers, along with our 4 interns. If you have a question or have a comment, I would say at this point, because of what's going on, I would frame it as if you want to have a comment, make it as something that is framed for a question to the congressman. Rather than just saying, here's my statement, thank you. That's the point, trying to have an interaction. If you do have a question, get the attention of one of those staffers, give your name, the city you're from, and your question topic, and we're going to try to give kind of a balance of topics. There's a lot of things that are going on, obviously, in DC. A lot of things under assault,
Right.
And we want to try to, cover as many things as possible, as well as any other issues that are on your mind. But the point is to try to have as many people heard as possible, have as many topics covered as possible, and do it in as orderly fashion as we can. If you have casework or something like that, I've got a Social Security case, just wait until afterwards and go to a caseworker, or just if you have a new one, go online and fill out the form. If you are selected, let the staffer hold the microphone. Ask the question, try not to give a speech. Again, you can give a context for what your question is and then follow up. Again, the goal is to let everyone raise the issues they want addressed. There might not be enough time for everyone's question because we just have a full house. If not, we have comment cards at the front desk. You can fill those out and we'll get back to you as much as possible. We did give priority to those who are constituents, who live in the congressional district, and those who've not asked questions at previous town halls, so that new people have opportunities. With that, I think we're going to be starting in just a couple of minutes. Again, really appreciate you being here, voting and going to a town hall or two expressions of democracy. And by being here today, you're showing faith in that and perhaps some frustration, which I think we all share, and we're going to hear about today. Yeah. So thank you very much. One other point, the restrooms are in the back over there. I assume there's a drinking fountain, I'm not sure. But definitely the restrooms are back there. Thank you.
I'm going to kick that in case they kick you out. Yeah, so far so good. Like, if Rose was in here, goes, I have some I'm out of here.
Okay, thank you.
sign. Let's see.
Would you do that?
I'm gonna check out your sign.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's an offer I don't
Okay. I have a question. I want to give this letter to our senator, our congressman. And they asked if he would what they're doing, minorities and stuff like that. This is the letter for the Christian churches. The organization of the 15, you give up to give it Yeah. Okay, so my question is, how do we stop them from doing this? Why do these process of they're removing that stuff from the Arlington National Center. So why can't they stop it? Why can't they reverse that? Okay. And what is your role over there, Nicole? You are. Okay, I'm gonna come and look for you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Nicole. Right now.
I have a suggestion. It's okay. No, I just have a suggestion. I think that we're not getting the message of what's going, how we're fighting back in DC, and I have a suggestion on how to
Now
fix
it's
that.
All right, just to wake you up. Again, thanks everybody for being here. I'm Congressman Khanna's District Director, Tom Pike. Let's all start off. Please stand if you are able and salute the flag.
God bless America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Very quickly, Representative Khanna is going to give an update about what's going on, and then we're going to start getting your questions as soon as possible. I'd like to thank the Santa Clara Police Department for being here today out in force. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Again, the bathrooms are in the back. We've got exits all around. If it starts getting full here, there's actually some seating right on the side outdoors you can still hear. And it's more air conditioning outside too. I would actually, in a normal situation, be announcing elected officials. We might get to that in a bit, but just because we're trying to handle the inflow here, I actually don't have the list. I can announce the mayor of Sunnyvale, who is here, Larry Klein. Richard Santos. Vice Mayor Kelly Cox of Santa Clara. And several other representatives. I apologize because I don't have the list yet. But other than that, I would like to introduce Santa Clara Mayor Lisa Gilmore.
Hey, Lisa! We voted for you.
Just before we go, if there are any open seats, can you raise your hand if it's next to it? And then if possible, there's plenty over here, it looks like. If you're in the back, we would appreciate if you could come around, try to fill the seats as best as possible. Leave your hands up for a second. Let's try to get in, because if you take a seat, additional people can come in. We still have a line. And at some point, we're going to have to close it down. Thank you very much. Sorry, Mayor Gilmore. Here you go.
Thank you so much. Wow, it's amazing up here to see all these people. So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Like it. As your mayor, I get to work alongside people every day who care deeply about our city. And today, I have the honor of introducing someone who's been a true champion for Santa Clara. Congressman Khanna has spent his career fighting for the heart of Silicon Valley.
Yes.
Yes, he has. Yes.
Yeah.
Not just for the big names in tech, but for the people and the families who make our community strong.
Thank you.
When jobs were being shipped overseas, Roe helped author parts of the CHIP Act to bring advanced manufacturing back to the United States, creating good-paying jobs right here in our region. When our local startups and students needed support, Roe secured millions in federal funding for innovation, STEM education, and workforce development at places like Santa Clara University and Mission College.
Go Broncos!
When cybersecurity threats put our businesses and personal data at risk, Roe built a national partnership to protect our digital infrastructure, keeping us safe and competitive. But what I admire most is this. Roe knows that technology alone does not build strong communities. He's just as focused on the things that matter to all of us. Affordable housing, clean energy, reliable public transit, clean water, Dick Santos.
Yay, Richard.
And health care, and making sure that working families can really thrive here in the Bay Area. And let's be honest, we're living in uncertain times. The country feels divided with an unpredictable president and gridlock in DC. It's more important than ever to have steady, principled leadership representing us.
Yeah.
Roe brings people together. Look at this. He listens and he never forgets who he works for.
Thank you. Roe.
Yes. So this afternoon, I'm proud to represent introduce not only our congressman, but a true public servant and advocate for Santa Clara, Congressman Khanna.
Thank you. Thank you to Mayor Gilmore. You know, when I started out, I had about 10 years ago now, there was Kathy Watanabe. Kathy couldn't come here, and Lisa Gilmore, and maybe 5 people in Santa Clara knew who I was. And I respected Lisa back then because she took me around Santa Clara, where she has lived for generations, and showed me different parts of the city, and you could tell. It was like that movie where Al Pacino plays the mayor of New York, and it says when a sparrow gets hurt, he feels the pain. That's Lisa Gilmore about Santa Clara. She just loves, whatever you think of her, she loves this city. She cares about this city. She's dedicated her life to public service. Thank you for being here. And thank you. Because I know you're not here for me. I've had a lot of these town halls. We get a couple hundred people usually. I know you're here because you're patriots.
Yeah.
And you're standing up for this country and the Constitution. And I'm here today angry and aspirational. I'm going to tell you about the anger part, but I'll start with the aspiration part. The fact that we had 34,000 people out in Denver to see Senator Sanders and the fact that 15,000 people showed up in Arizona. The fact that we have thousands of people going to show up when Tim Walz is out there. The fact that in my personal capacity tomorrow I'm going to Bakersfield, Norco, and thousands of people are showing up. That all of you are here, let me tell you something. They are underestimating the American people.
That's right.
They're underestimating democratic movements, and we are going to take our democracy back.
Yes.
But we need to understand what these folks are about. Because we've seen this story before in the 1920s.
That's right.
We've seen this story before with Herbert Hoover and Andrew Mellon. When these multi-billionaires get in charge. And I represent a district with a lot of these technology leaders. You want to go, you want to build wealth, you want to build technology, fine. But they're doing something much more sinister. They've taken over the levers of government.
Everything.
And what they are doing is cutting Medicaid, $880 billion of Medicaid cuts.
How dare them? How dare them?
Cutting Department of Education. I was at a breakfast with teachers. There are 92 teachers in our district who have been given the pink slip in Head Start.
That's shameful.
Head Start, 92 teachers. Who does that? Taking away teachers from our most important kids in early education. They're firing veterans.
Oh.
No!
He fired the chief of the...
One third of the people in the federal government, 1/3 of the federal civil servants are veterans. I said to Elon, Elon's been angry at me. I can't even repeat the names he's called me. But the point is, when he was talking to me, I said to him, look, there are people who have worn the uniform. They've gone to Iraq.
That's right.
They've gone to Afghanistan.
Yes.
They're now in our National Park Service.
Right.
They're now helping people with mental health issues. We don't need you to be evaluating them on 70% efficiency. This is not Twitter. This is not SpaceX. If you wear the uniform and you go serve this country, our country owes you an obligation that we're going to. And the firing of these veterans with no thought.
It's disgusting.
Is probably the most shameful part of what this administration is doing, and there's a long list. There's a long list. And we're going to get the questions. We're going to get the questions, of course. But let me just do this, because I don't want to be historical, but in the 1920s there was a Treasury Secretary, Andrew Mellon, and he said to Herbert Hoover, liquidate labor. Liquidate the stock market, liquidate farmers, liquidate government, get rid of all of it because the people are incompetent or getting benefits and we need more hardworking, enterprising people to take over from the wreckage. My friends, it's the same philosophy today. They've got a bunch of these billionaires. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, is out there. He's out there saying, if they miss a Social Security check, they won't notice. I mean, come on. Come on. They have the same disdain for ordinary Americans. But I'll tell you something, when Mellon and Hoover did it in the 1920s, you know what? It didn't just hurt people who were working class. It didn't just hurt the middle class. It crashed the economy.
Right.
And they are taking the same steps. This is a reincarnation of Hooverism,
Yes.
where they have destroyed the economy. In 9 weeks, consumer confidence is down. Economic growth down. The inflation projections up. The Fed chair is the most diplomatic person, is basically politely telling Donald Trump, you're destroying the economy. That's why I can't do anything on the rates. So we need to get our message out around this country that we are going to stand up for what this country has built with Social Security, with Medicare, with Medicaid, that we are going to stand up for our veterans, that we're going to stand up for education and the funding of education, that we're going to stand up against the intimidation where a president of the United States can't just threaten law firms if they happen to have people who disagree with them, that we're going to stand up for immigrants in terms of their due process. I said to someone, I have no problem if you have a convicted Venezuelan gang member being deported. I have a problem if we don't know if the person was in the Venezuelan gang. You know, in this country, we have due process. That is the foundation of this country. So I am hopeful today because of this turnout and because of what we're seeing around the country, that this has awakened Americans to understand what's at stake, to understand very simply that the government does a lot that is good. I am tired of being lectured by billionaires who have profited off the government about the government just being corrupt and fraudulent. I've said this many times, and then I'll open it up for questions. Elon Musk wouldn't be Elon Musk if it were not for the federal government. The federal government gave him the money to start Tesla at the Treasury Department. The federal government under Barack Obama gave him the contracts to start SpaceX with NASA. And the federal government, with the funding of buying semiconductors, is what built Fairchild and what built Silicon Valley. This federal government of ours has supported Americans with Social Security, with Medicare, with Medicaid, with taking care of our parks, with keeping our water clean, with keeping our air safe to breathe, with having minimum wage, with having help for people on education in the public schools that I went in. We need to stand up and say government is good. The people who work in government are honorable, and we're not going to let Donald Trump and his billionaires dismantle what this country has done. With that, let me open it up to questions.
Congressman, we have are we starting the Q&A now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, all right, I'll tell you what, just real quick.
No, we don't, yeah, we're good.
We're good. Okay, well, we're gonna go to hip first. Hips first, he's ready to go. Again, here, just real quick. Again, as I said before, we've got 3 mic runners. Hip, Nicole, Yvonne, with our interns are helping. If you have a question, get their attention. Thank you. Hip, go for it.
Congressman, we have Sarah from San Jose with the topic leadership and inspiring the base.
Good afternoon. I am speaking to you as a constituent, as a teacher. I am speaking to you as a constituent, as a teacher, and someone who is terrified for my family. I am ready to take action, but I am not seeing anything coming from Washington, with the exception of a few people who are inspiring our base. And I am a lifelong Democrat, as are my parents, as is my entire family. We need people who are willing to show up. We need people to be with us out in the streets. We need to see that type of leadership. You talked a lot about really amazing things. How is it going to happen?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and I hear the concern and the anger. I mean, I was talking to a group, Equity in Sunnyvale yesterday, and they were being polite. And I was saying, look, we need to make sure that in 2 years, Hakeem Jeffries is the Speaker of the House. And one person interrupted me and said, Congressman, with due respect, we don't have 2 years to wait. We don't have 2 years to wait. What are we doing now? What are we doing today? First of all, I just have to be very blunt. What Senator Schumer did without getting a single concession was shameful. And the entire House of Representatives, other than one person, voted no on that bill. We could have at least gotten some concessions. Don't close the Social Security offices. Don't fire veterans.
Right.
Don't have blanket dismantling of the Department of Education, of the SBA, of USAID without any congressional consent. We got nothing. We got nothing. And there was great anger in the House Democratic Caucus. Right. And my sense is that we need a whole, if you're not going to be willing to be part of the fight, then you need to step aside. So I think that there is going to be a wake-up call for leadership. The second thing is, many of us, in my own personal capacity, not in an official capacity, like I said, I'm going to red districts tomorrow across this state. Two-thirds of people in Valdeo's district are on Medicaid. Two-thirds. I mean, these cuts are going to hurt our district, but they're going to hurt some of the red districts even more. And the Republicans aren't willing to do a town hall. You know, when we have a town hall, we don't ask people to pre-register on a website or have some police check that some members of Congress do. We don't say if you're a Republican, you can't come here. I've been protested before. I've had people ask tough questions. I'm sure some will today. They're unwilling to do town halls. So I'm going to help do them for them. And there are a number of us who are going to be going and doing that. And our next fight is going to come up on the debt ceiling. My view is very simple. No cooperation with the Republican Party until they agree to abide by the Constitution. And that is what I'm going to continue to fight for and advocate. And I'm going to be doing not just these town halls, but taking that message on the streets, in districts across the country.
Thank you.
Congressman, I have Laura from San Jose with a question about the Medicaid cuts.
Thank you so much for doing this town hall. I've spent the last year in treatment for breast cancer.
Oh.
I know there are many families here who are also facing these kinds of problems of major health issues, pre-existing conditions, and needing to have their health care be protected. The PPACA, one of the most important parts of it is the PP, patient protections, that you cannot discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. We are now looking at cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and even the canceling of possible research for breast cancer because it's DEI to do research for women. I am so frightened.
Oh, God love you.
What is Congress going to do for us? What are you going to do for us? And what can we do? I know there is an action on April 5th. handsoff2025.org, handsoff2025.org. There'll be actions across the United States, but I'm asking, what can you do for us? Thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause for her. We have so many people who feel your resilience, your pain, and I just want to thank you for having the courage with all that you have going on to share your story, because the cruelty of what they're doing. I mean, this is not politics. They are, by cutting Medicaid, they are taking away treatment from millions. They are taking away the centers that could be curing people who have cancer or other diseases. Now, what can we do? These cuts have not gone into effect yet in terms of Medicaid or Medicare. We have to push in these Republican areas. There are 212 Democrats who are opposed to these cuts. We just need 3. We need 3 Republicans. It's a flip in the House. There was one Republican in Utah yesterday who started to say, well, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about the slippage to authoritarianism. I said, you think? You know? But we've got one voice. And so the action that you're going to take and the action that all of us are going to take, we need 3 of them, just 3 of them, to wake up. The cuts to the science funding is outrageous. I mean, who cuts funding for cancer research, for Alzheimer's research? There used to be bipartisan. We used to come, folks for Alzheimer's used to come see me every year, and bipartisan, we were getting that funding to be increased. Funding increased on cancer. And yet, what he is doing is he's cutting all of the indirect funding, the funding for the labs, the funding for the people, technicians in these labs. And we need to speak out. And again, there are 3 Republicans who can stop it if we continue to speak out before the final budget passes. The final point about DEI. I mean, what they are doing is scrubbing the internet, and anything that has DEI, they are basically taking those cuts. But I got to tell you something, the private sector hasn't exactly shown a lot of courage. You know, I mean, you've got law firms that are basically saying, okay, we're going to get rid of our DEI policy. I'll tell you what DEI is. I used to teach at Stanford and at Santa Clara. And I used to say at Stanford, some of my students got funded before they had an idea. Not because they had the most merit, but because they knew the right venture capitalists, email. And DEI says that there's talent and that there's hardworking people in every zip code in America. And they have different backgrounds and different genders, and that we need all the talent and all the hard work in this country on the playing field. That's all it is. And they're going after that. But I'll tell you what we need to do in this district. And we've got a lot of problems with housing and people who have food insecurity. But in this district, let's just make sure we get the lights. In this district, where we have got $14 trillion of value, of market value, we can afford to stand on some principles and stand up for DEI and cancer research and not bend the knee to Donald Trump. And certainly, I am going to continue to fight for these policies and take that fight to red districts. But thank you for sharing your story, and I admire your resilience. Tom, are we getting the lights back on? Yeah.
Looks like we are getting the lights back on, but we do have another question. We have Shanice from Santa Clara with a question on the Department of Education.
Thank you. You tweeted to Elon Musk, let's debate the need for the Department of Education. And my question is this: why are you giving this man the attention and validation that he so desperately needs? The last I checked, he was not one of your constituents, and he was not one of the American citizens. We don't want you talking to that man. We don't want you tweeting to that man. So my question is this: why are you giving this man the attention and validation he so desperately desires?
I think I meant the tweet sarcastically in terms of, I mean, he had called me a dick on Twitter, and, you know, so he's not, you know, and I've said he should come to Congress and he should be subpoenaed and he should be facing, and then what he's been doing is unconstitutional. But what I said is, what I said is that, you know, he's big on free speech. And I said, I'm standing here ready, whether it's you or anyone else, to debate you on the value of education in this country. Because what he has done is put out, with Donald Trump, misinformation. They said 20 million people are getting Social Security checks incorrectly. And the truth is that there are only 44,000 that actually have gotten overpayment. That is, yeah, let's deal with that, but don't scare people into saying it's 20 million. They are putting out statistics about the Department of Education that are false. That they're not talking about the money that's going into schools for working class neighborhoods. They're not talking about the money that's going into the special education programs for anyone who has a special needs kid. They're not talking about the loans that people like me that got to go to college and higher education. But I will tell you something. I think one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that the Democrats lost the election is we were unwilling to go on to Fox News and to podcast and to debate our ideas. And we cannot be afraid. We will not win the argument if we're not out there taking on the argument. So my belief has always been, I will go on any platform, debate any person. I'm not going to compromise my ideals. I'm not going to shy away from what I believe. But I believe the way the Democrats win is through persuasion. And we need to go out and make that case. And I'd welcome exposing the fraud that this administration is perpetrating by debating any of them on these issues.
Just real quick, we have called the custodian who was on site a little bit earlier, but if you're on the wall, if you can check and just make sure you didn't accidentally hit the light. I'm going to look backstage. This is something, you know, we're not here all the time. Thank you.
Congressman, we have Rob Means from Milpitas. The topic is visit to Red District.
So Congressman, I'm on your email list, and I got an email that said you were headed out to the red districts because, well, red districts are not having town halls. You're going to have town halls there. It inspired me so much, I kicked in a little money to your campaign. But what I'm curious about is if you've already done that. I imagine the town halls are like this, but in some ways they might be different, and I was kind of curious as to whether there were some differences there, and if you haven't even been out, then you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rob, for always coming to these town halls. I'm going tomorrow. I'm going to, not in an official capacity, in my personal capacity, I'm going to Bakersfield. I'm going to Anaheim, and I'm going to Norco. And, you know, from the RSVPs, we've gotten, you know, 700 to 1,000 RSVPs in all of these places. So people want to be told what's going on. And my sense is, I'll let you know when I get back, but my sense is people are most upset about healthcare, about the cuts to Medicaid. The cuts, and that's not just going to affect people on Medicaid, it's going to affect the hospitals and the doctors and the community centers that rely on Medicaid for the revenue. So we're going to talk about that, we're going to talk about veterans, we're going to talk about the firing of veterans, we're going to talk about the unconstitutional actions, and, you know, I'm spending all Sunday tomorrow 5 hours on the road in these 3 events, because I just think it's of course my first obligation is to be here and to do these town halls, and I have for 9 years every month in person. But I don't think that's going to be enough. To the person's point earlier, what are we doing to fight this is one of the things that I thought, okay, this is the way we can be on the offense, to go into red districts and talk to folks about what's going on, so that we can have this movement not just be in blue districts, but be around the country. So I appreciate your support for that endeavor.
Congressman, I have Richard from San Jose with a question about flood funding.
Vice Chair Dick Santos, how you doing?
Dick has been such a leader of our community, and the mayor of Valviso, as I call him, and just a great Santa Clara board member. Thank you, Water Board.
There's a whole bunch of important issues, and make sure you know you're not by yourself. We're here to help also.
Thank you.
The issue, Mike Flower used to be in the Open Space Authority. He just passed away. So he always would ask me, when can we get the Penitentiary Creek, get the funding? And I know there's a lot of important issues, but that creek in 1998, major flooding, and the Army Corps of Engineers, the funding's not there. So whatever you can do, but make sure, again, you're not by yourself, and thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dick. And Dick, you have been such a champion for getting funding for the projects, and with Larry Klein, I know we worked on a number of projects together with the Army Corps of Engineers. Right now the problem is, even when we tell Congress to do something, we don't know if this administration is going to follow through. But we will work with Zoe Lofgren, Sam Liccardo, Jimmy Panetta as a delegation on this, and make this a high priority, and we'll try to make it bipartisan. In the past, we've been able to make it bipartisan, but we will work to try to get this funding, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Richard.
What's going to happen to the post office?
Well, look, I mean, they're going after the post office. I often say when folks say, well, is the post office efficient? Because all this efficiency. You tell me how FedEx or UPS is going to send a letter across country for 50 cents. And then we can talk about efficiency. I mean, the reality is the postal workers in this country, not only do they do an incredible job of getting mail and packages delivered at a cost that working and middle class can afford, they're also a glue in the community. Many people have a relationship, a friendship with the letter carrier, and they build community. So we passed, under the Biden administration, we actually gave them the money necessary to keep the Postal Service solvent for the next 20 years. And it's now Trump that wants to privatize it. But look, they want to try to gut all of these agencies. When Vice President Harris said that they were trying to institute 2025, Donald Trump said he wasn't. He lied. That is what they are doing. And it's agency, and the Postal Service is one of them. So we're pushing on the Oversight Committee, we're pushing with everything, but the main thing we need to do, in my view, is to let the American people know what's going on. There's an information gap. They don't know how bad it is, what he's doing. Slowly they're figuring it out. But this is not, candidly, it's not 212 House Democrats or 47 senators or the governors who are going to defeat it. It's the American people. It's having these kind of turnouts in every district in America that's going to start to reverse what they're doing. Who's next?
Congressman, we have Pranav from Santa Clara with a question on Doge.
Hello, I'm Pranav Shankar, and I'm a freshman at Wilcox High School, and I want to ask you mainly about Trump and Musk's attempt to basically destroy the government. And now, many in the legacy media have essentially been worrying about how this is all illegal, some even unconstitutional, like his attempts at impoundment with freezing those federal funds. And while yes, this is illegal, I think like this whole focus on legality, it might imply, oh, if this was legal, then it would be completely fine. But as has been shown today, it's not fine. Even if this was all legal, well, we still shouldn't be doing this. So what do you say to your fellow Democrats who might say, oh yeah, well, Congress can do this if they just pass a bill defunding the Department of Education? Well, no, they should not do that, because like, what, are we supposed to leave special ed kids just to, not get the funding they need, the help they need? No, they need help. And USAID, are we going to let kids in Africa just go, get cancer? No. So yeah, what do you say to those Democrats?
I appreciate your point, and that is that even if you believe that government should be more effective and you wanted to go after waste, the place you would start is not with USAID, which is less than 0.7% of the federal budget. It is not with the Department of Education, which is less than a few percent of the budget. You know what is over 50% of the budget is our Defense Department and the Pentagon, the defense contractors. They aren't going after that. Their budget has $100 billion plus up in the Pentagon budget. And by the way, their budgets that they just passed add $4.6 trillion to the deficits, more over the next 10 years than the Biden budgets did. More. We're $36 trillion in debt. Their budgets add $28.5 trillion more to the debt, and that is $4.6 trillion more than the Biden budgets were. So they're adding to the debt. They're not going after the defense contractors. They're not going after the fossil fuel subsidies. That's waste, subsidizing big oil at this time when oil is more expensive than solar and wind. They're not going after the Medicare Advantage fraud of upbilling our government. They're not going after big pharma or the PBMs that are charging too much for drugs. And they're engaged in trying to go after our teachers and our veterans. And the entire federal workforce is less than 3% of the budget. So what is this really about? It's not about saving dollars and cents, it's about an ideological agenda. They are going after the things that they never liked. They're going after DEI, they're going after education, they're going after benefits of people, hardworking people who are in healthcare, because they think those benefits make them dependent on government, and we are going to expose their fraud on it.
Congressman, we have Jonas Dino from Union City about reduction in force.
Hello, Congressman. My name is Jonas Dino. I'm the president of the Ames Federal Employees Union at NASA Ames Research Center. I represent more than 1,100 dedicated federal workers that do the work for the American people. We were sorry that we weren't able to meet with your office in DC, but hopefully next year when we go back again, we'd like to meet with you. We need your help. We have been subjected to weekly and sometimes daily harassment from the Trump administration and DOGE. We stand ready to continue America's leadership in space, research, and technology development, but we are under threat of a reduction in force without a change in what we are doing. So we'll just have less people to do what we need to do. We ask that you support the RIF moratorium bills that were introduced by the House Science Subcommittee with Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. And we also, and I echo the first speaker that asked about getting a message and getting it out to the people. Right. Especially this thing about DEI. I cover a whole bunch of DEI stuff. I'm not white. I'm a veteran. I have a disability. I have brown skin. I'm over 40. Okay? I cover a lot of DEI. I've worked hard for where I'm at. And for people to be able to accuse people who have worked their butts off just because they don't fit a white male under 40, that they deserve where they're at. The men and women of the Ames Federal Employees Union and International Federation of Professional Technical Engineers, which we are Local 30, and other federal workers across the country are ready to take a stand. We actually have already been doing that. We just need the Democratic caucus to take a stand, protect federal workers, and stick with it. So, we would love to work with you in any way helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your leadership, and you have a lot to be proud of. And don't let anyone tell you that you're not there because of your hard work and your merit and your success, and that it is offensive what the Trump administration is implying by labeling anyone in this country who has achieved things like you have DEI hires. I mean, they did that about Vice President Harris. They call Hakeem Jeffries a DEI leader. Basically, are using DEI to denigrate any person who doesn't fit their idea of an American. But they're not going to win. They're not. That is not something. And that's why the Democrats have to be very, very clear that we stand for the principles of an inclusive democracy. That we have to be vocal at the diversity, equity, and inclusion is basically saying that we want to look for talent and hard work and merit everywhere in America, and that's how we build a democracy. But to your specific points, one, if you could talk to HIP afterwards, I'd love to meet with the group and Ames. I obviously am in supporting Zolofkin's legislation, but we need to do more than just support the legislation. I mean, on the one hand, they're talking about wanting to go to Mars. On the other hand, they're firing exactly the workers at NASA and Ames that have made our space program what it is. So you can't have a rhetoric saying that you're expanding America's world lead in AI and technology and trying to explore new horizons, and then firing the very federal workers who have made that possible. We need to recognize the iPhone, 90% of the things in the iPhone are made possible because it was the federal government workers at NSF, at DARPA. That's how built Silicon Valley. That's what got us onto the moon. And so this rhetoric, frankly, since Reagan, that demeaning government, demeaning federal service, demeaning government workers is not how America was built. And it's not what's going to help us win the 21st century. So we need to talk about protecting you, and I'm happy to do that on the House floor and be vocal, not just because it's the right thing to do, not just because those are good jobs and you deserve those jobs, but because if America is to succeed in the 21st century, if we want to build the economic future, we do that with a partnership between government, technologists, and business leaders, not by dismantling the very government that has built America's economy. And you are a part of building that future.
I have Donna from Sunnyvale with a question about education funding.
Hi. I've been a public school teacher at a Title I school for 25 years, nearby in El Viso. We know that Trump just signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education, and I'm being told that it's not time to raise red flags because IDEA and Title I funding have not been cut. However, we know from Project 2025 and others that the intent may be to convert funds to block grants. So I have two questions. One, what plans do you have to not just vote against the elimination of the Department of Education, but also to protect categorical funding meant to provide extra support to vulnerable populations? And two, what actions can we take before Republicans touch that funding?
Right. Well, you're right. I mean, look, they're talking about cutting the Department of Education, and they claim that the funding isn't going to be cut. But then today I read they were going to do it with the Small Business Administration. Now they're talking about cutting the Small Business Administration. So the reality is that there is risk to this funding. Our Head Start teachers wouldn't be getting pink slip if the county didn't think there was a risk. There is a risk to the IDEA funding, and by the way, as you know, the IDEA funding, the federal government only pays 15% of the funding. They should be paying 40%. I'm on the bill with Jared Huffman to pay 40%. My mom was a substitute school teacher for special needs, so I understand how important those programs are. And we need to make sure that we get the message out. Here's the challenge of what's going on. Right now, the Republican members of Congress in these districts are more afraid of Donald Trump than they are of their voters. And they're hoping that that's just the truth of Trump and Musk. And they're hoping that their voters don't notice all of these details. Because, you know, the sad truth of this election is Donald Trump unfortunately won voters making $100,000 in America. One of my friends said, I don't think they figured out that the people who are most benefiting from Medicaid and some of these programs are their voters. And they are counting on these voters not realizing the cuts that are taking place. And so you said, what can we do? Well, let me tell you something. This is a country of 330 million people. And there's a lot of disinformation out there. And 212 members of Congress and 47 senators aren't going to be able to overcome that. But you know what, Will? Millions of Americans marching, posting, speaking, going around the country to get out the facts about what's going on. That's the only way we're going to stop. I am happy to be as vocal, and I'm trying to push the caucus to be more vocal, but we need all of us out there to get these facts out, not just in our district, but around the state and around the country.
What about donating to campaigns around the country?
Sir, because it's an official town hall, I'm not allowed to sort of talk about that, but I'm happy to talk to you about it outside. But I can't, with a government town hall. Trump doesn't believe in ethics. I still do.
Congressman, we have Dawn from San Jose with a question on Ukraine.
The trouble is that Trump is Putin's lapdog, and he will support anything that Putin wants in Ukraine. We must stand up for Putin, for against Putin, and for Ukraine. Biden supported Ukraine, and Trump has cut off all that support. I want to see us help the Ukraine in any way that we can.
Raise your hand if you were as embarrassed as me seeing J.D. Vance berate Zelensky. I mean, that was one of the low moments for American leadership in this world. My problem was not even with J.D. Vance's position, which is incoherent. My problem was why is he treating an ally, someone who's risking his life literally for the defense of freedom, and he's dressing him down with no class in the Oval Office. And what they want to do, what they want to do is give Putin 1/5 of Ukraine. They want to just hand Putin 1/5 of Ukraine. And that they have no sense of, a negotiation of a just peace, and you don't have Zelensky participating in the negotiation. Look, I have always been for peace. I am not against diplomacy, but diplomacy does not mean appeasement to Putin to take 1/5 of Ukraine. The Democrats are going to continue to be very, very clear. We stand with Ukraine. We stand for human rights. We stand for territorial sovereignty. And we aren't going to abandon our allies around the world. Who's next? I'm going to try to keep my answers a little shorter so we can get as many of these questions. Yeah.
Congressman, we have Violet Moon from Cupertino on trans rights. Yes, hello. As a transgender constituent, I'm seeing unprecedented attacks on trans rights, not only from the right, but we are also feeling abandoned by Democrats as well. What I want to know is, what are you doing to protect your most vulnerable citizens and constituents?
Well, thank you for being here. I haven't abandoned you. I will never abandon you. I don't care what the polling says. We need to stand for the dignity of every person in this country. When we throw trans people under the bus, then we'll throw LGBTQ people under the bus, then we'll throw immigrants under the bus, then we'll throw women under the bus. That is not the district I believe in. That is not the country I believe in. And I don't care whether it's an 80-20, 70-30 issue. We need to stand on principle. And Shane, you know, look, we have a law in this country, in this state. I know the governor made some news, but look, we have a law in this state that the governor supported since 2013, that Jerry Brown supported, and it said that people who are trans can play in our schools, and the California Athletic Association Federation decides on the standards, and it's worked for 10 years. It's worked for 10 years, and yet for people to now be backtracking on that, that's not strength. The reason we lost the election wasn't because of the trans ad, it's because we didn't have a compelling economic message on inflation. And so I've been criticized in my own district for my view on this. I debated Megyn Kelly of Fox News on it, but I am not going to abandon our core values on this issue, and I appreciate your being out here.
Roger from Cupertino with a question about vaccines.
Thank you, Congressman, for holding this town hall and for going to the 3 Republican districts. Thank you. I have one item. In February, there was an announcement from HHS that 2 meetings were being canceled that dealt with the development of the influenza vaccine for this fall. I believe this announcement flew beneath the radar of most news outlets because of other more urgent headlines. These meetings are extremely important in starting the development of our flu shots. Lead time is needed to manufacture, ship around the country, and to advertise when the flu shot is to be taken. Do you know if these meetings have been rescheduled and/or are taking place, or that this process has started, which protects the health of tens of millions of people in the fall?
Well, thank you for raising that. You know, I get the flu shot every year. As you know, the flu claims the lives of 40, 50,000 people every year, many seniors, many people with health vulnerabilities. And I was very aware of those meetings being canceled. And part of the problem is that Trump is just doing so much. Department of Education dismantling, USAID dismantling, cutting Medicaid, firing veterans, breaking alliances. It's hard to keep track and speak out on every issue. We did speak out on it, but what I am happy to do is to meet with you afterwards and to inquire back if those meetings have been rescheduled and see what we can do to make sure that we have the flu shot in time for the fall, because that would be a disaster for so many people without the flu shot. And it is just so, so disheartening how those views were not challenged by the Republicans in the Senate hearing, and there was confirmation without recognizing the extraordinary vaccines that have been developed in modern science. I mean, Trump's taking us back, in some cases, to the 1800s in terms of his views on science. So I will speak out, and I appreciate you raising that.
Congressman, we have Kat from San Jose with a question on the budget resolution.
Hi, we're in the middle of tax season. And I keep wondering about where my money will go. I looked at the CR season. I saw a fractured leadership in Congress for the Democrats. I saw poor messaging to the American public. I saw that there were sequestered meetings between Mr. Musk and the Republican part of Congress, which is insane. Insane. I know this year that Trump's first term tax package is going to sunset. I know it contributed to the increase of our debt by trillions of dollars. And today, our interest payments on that debt were up to $629 billion, which is almost like the expense of Medicare, almost equivalent. I want to know, what is the Democratic Congress, Democratic caucus doing for their inside game plan to be able to crush what Mike Johnson is going to try and vote through Congress? I also heard that you want, this comes from the streets, the power of public voice. Just for context, to oppose authoritarian regimes, there are studies that it takes 3.5% of a population, which means 10 million people have to go out and start protesting, showing up at town hall. So, my question is what is Congress, from the Dems' point of view, what is going to be different so we do not increase our debt again, because the math is not adding up. We're pulling money from the general fund, from the 97% of us that are below the 3% multimillionaires and oligarchs, and we're going to contribute to their ability to do wealth hoarding and to have tax cuts on our backs.
Well, your facts are absolutely correct. I mean, the tax breaks that they want, 83% of the benefit will go to the top 1%. 83%. At a time where the top 10% in this country own 70% of the wealth, the bottom 50% of this country own 2.6% of the wealth. They want tax breaks for the 1%, 83% going to 1%. And it's going to explode the deficit. As I said earlier, our current debt is $36 trillion. Their budget would add $28.5 trillion to that debt. And they are also going to cut Medicaid. We're also going to cut Medicaid. The reason so many people were so disappointed in Chuck Schumer is we had no say on the reconciliation bill. When we're all going to vote against it, they can pass that with a narrow House majority and with the Senate, 51 senators. We did have a say on the continuing resolution, and we should have said no. And we need to make sure that next time we're saying no on the debt ceiling, no on budget, not giving them these votes. And so one of the things that we need to do is to make it clear to our Democratic friends in the Senate that this is not the time, this is not the same old politics. It is not Mitt Romney who's president. This is a different president, and they need to understand the stakes. And they can't be compromising without getting anything. Look, Nancy Pelosi said that. She was, whatever you think about her, she was tough. And she knew how to fight Trump in 2018. And we need that kind of chutzpah in taking on this president, because the facts are on our side. In terms of stopping this absurd policy, because, you know, I rather, honestly, someone said to me, oh, are you going to these districts because you hope they lose? I said, look, what I hope they do is do the right thing. If you ask me, can you stop them from voting for Medicaid cuts and they get to keep their seats? I don't want people to be hurt in this country. I'd rather they do the right thing. We need three Republicans in this country to flip and to stop these cuts. And, you know, that is what we've got to be. We've got to be going and making the case, because right now there's an information asymmetry. Our side of the facts aren't coming out. The president sat there in the State of the Union and told all these blatant untruths. He said he was going to balance the budget on day one. And he's putting a budget, the same day he's putting a budget out, which increases the budget by $28.5 trillion. But the facts are not getting out. I'm sorry? Well, the red districts, look, there are a lot of these red districts. The good news is Trump's numbers are underwater on the economy. First time he's ever going underwater. And I think by getting out there, not all of you have to do road trips around California, but by and now on a social media, getting the facts out to people you know, families you know, across the state about what's going on. And I keep it simple. You know, we talked till we were blue in the face about his threats on democracy, and unfortunately that wasn't enough in the election. But you know what is going to matter to people? Losing their health care, losing their funding for their schools, seeing people who they knew growing up who wore the uniform, went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan, and then being fired. We need to talk about these simple things that Trump is doing, and the American people are good, they're kind and decent, and I think they're going to respond. And all of us need to be doing it. I certainly am doing it, but we're all, to your point about 10 million people, we need a mobilization of 10 million people with the facts.
You need to be out there with us to attract people.
I'm happy to be out there. I was out there last weekend or 2 weekends ago. There was a rally in San Jose. I was out there at the San Jose rally, but I'm obviously going out tomorrow to different rallies, and I'm happy to be out there. Of course, Bernie has been out there. Tim Walz has been out there. But we need more members of Congress. There are a lot of us Congress people in the delegation. You know, my hope is what I'm doing tomorrow maybe inspires some of the other ones to be doing it as well. Yeah.
Congressman, we have Ben McMahon from Sunnyvale. He has a question to you.
So my question is, why are you acting like things are normal? And I'll give you an example. Everyone here is asking you, how are you going to fight? And all your answers are very normal. I'm going to vote no. I'm going to go to town halls. I'm going to talk to people. And like I saw Al Green's leadership in the State of the Union. Fighting against the Medicaid cuts you're pointing out is atrocious here. And normally I'd be aghast at that behavior. But things aren't normal. And imagine if every Democrat after him took up his leadership and one at a time yelled until they were kicked out. I don't know what would be said the next day. All sorts of things. One thing would not be said is things are normal. No one would be gaslighting me that I'm overreacting. You would actually show the leadership. I think all of us want you to show, and we know you can. So rephrase my question, why are you acting like things are normal?
Well, I appreciate the passion, and I certainly wasn't one of the people who voted to censure Al Green. I thought that, here he was engaged in his First Amendment right and civil protest. But I think, and I respect, Al Green, but I think we have to understand that, Kamala Harris won this district by 30 points. I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and we lost that district by 1 point. And if we want to check Donald Trump, and if we want to actually stop these cuts, in my opinion, it's not enough that we get the people in this district to agree with us. We have to think about what is going to be persuasive to people in places across this country that we lost. And what Al Green did, in my opinion, though I respect him, is not going to convince a single person who voted for Donald Trump. I'll give you a word back. I think that,
They're low info. They're being told a lot. If everyone had stand up, it's such a crazy thing to have happened, everybody would wake up. They would say nasty things the next day, but they would pay attention. They would notice their veterans are getting cut, right? It's because he had to do it alone. You didn't step up with his leadership. That's why it was ineffectual.
My view is that the polling and the numbers show that in these districts that Trump had won, he is falling in his in support on the economy, on Medicaid, on a number of these issues, and that to convince people that we have to win back their public opinion. I mean, even Lincoln at the height of the Civil War said public opinion and public sentiment is everything. And my own view is that we have to make the case in a way that's effective in getting people that we lost with strength and conviction. But we can talk afterwards. One more comment.
It's not even a question. Honestly, I think the reason Donald Trump won is he realizes you can change public opinion and you don't. Like those polling numbers are responsive to how you are acting. And you can change those, and that 1 point could easily be changed by you.
I agree, but the polling numbers are going down for Donald Trump. We are changing them. But the question is, how do you behave? And my view is Donald Trump has behaved through spectacle and through gimmick. And if you want to continue that, when we have a Republican president, the Democrats will march out, and then when we have a Democratic president, which we will in 2028, the Republicans march out, and that when they have spectacle, that we match with spectacle, then I think that will be the degradation of democracy. My belief is what this country needs is inspiration, and that's what the Democrats should provide. But I respect your point of view.
All right, time stands for no one. We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions.
We can go longer. We don't have to be out here till 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 or 3. Just kind of give us a heads up.
We'll go to 1:55 and then we'll leave. So we have 15 minutes. Come on.
All right.
Congressman, I have Rick from Sunnyvale with a question about how constituents can help.
Hi. Yeah, I, like many of the people here, am frustrated with what the Democrats have done and in resisting the mega cult. Okay, so, but I'm not one of these people that wants to sit on my rear and criticize you or any of the other Democrats if I'm not doing something myself. What I'd like you to do is look around at these resources you have. Use us. You know, have a finger focus. What we need from you is directions and leadership. I would like to go on to the website and find information on what I can do. For example, there are races out there that are in pink or purple, districts. This district, your district, is probably not going to go to Republican. But where we can put our investments most effectively is in these districts that are up for risk. And that will make the Republicans at least stand up and take notice. So I'd like to go onto your website and find where you suggest. I don't want to give my money to some big Democratic National Committee where I don't know what's going to happen with money. I want to put my money where it's going to be most effective. I'd also like to know what I can do. For example, where can I go to find, information on demonstrations? Where can I go to find anything else that helps you be more effective too? Right.
Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for your civic spirit, and that's what it's going to take. You can go to, the reason we can't discuss it more in detail in a town hall, official town hall, because there's some Republicans here too. It's supposed to be open to everyone in the district, and that's just the guidelines. But what we can do, you can go to my Facebook page, you can go to my Twitter page, @Khanna. We have all the demonstrations. We have my town halls that I'm doing in Bakersfield, Anaheim, Norco. Folks here, I'm sure, know people there. You can get out the message on different rallies, the April 5th action that's going to be taking place. There was a rally just 2 weeks ago in San Jose that 1,000 people showed up at. And what we can do is on that page, and if you sign up for our emails, make sure that you're getting all of the information about ways that you can participate, because there are many, many ways that you can participate, and I appreciate your doing that. Go ahead.
You said that you can't provide information on the districts where we might invest into beat the Republicans.
I can't here, but if you sign up on my website for the emails, I can there. It's just I have to do that in a political way. I can't use this forum to advocate for a candidate.
Honorable Khanna, I know that what you have done is wonderful, and I know you're telling us that we should let other representatives who are not in our district, but if you go online to talk to them, they say if you're not in our district, they don't even listen to you. You have to write a letter, go online, find out all these other representatives that you want to contact, and write a letter to them. Their address is online, because they will not listen to you if you just go online and you're not from their district. When your address comes up,
I agree. I think it's one of the, I'm not going to tell my colleagues under the bus, but I think it should be a requirement of the job to do monthly town halls, because the reason I do it is there's a lot of times people are upset at me sometimes, and I get to hear because a lot of times you can't hit, otherwise how are you going to find out? And I know your point about how hard it is to get other members of Congress to pay attention. One of the things that they do pay attention to is social media. So if you're, out there, one of the reasons that my town halls tomorrow, we're live streaming them, we're putting on social media, I'm trying to show people you don't have to be as famous as Tim Walz or Bernie Sanders to do your part. Any member of Congress can go out to these districts and start getting people and start getting the word out. Let me just, I don't want to, there are other people in line, so it's not, go ahead.
We have Josie from San Jose with a question about Social Security.
Thank you. First off, sir, I want to thank you with all my heart for being here. Yeah. That is fantastic.
Thank all of you. I want to thank all of you for being here.
I have to say, I am the daughter of dirt farmers from Italy who came here for a better life. Like a lot of these people here, I went to school, public school, in the 50s and 60s. And what we learned about this country was its exceptionalism. It was the best thing ever in the history of government. And right now I am ashamed of that country. But that's to the side. The other thing I want to say is this. Social Security was the promise we were made. Yeah. It is our money. That's right. I started working at 16. Okay? I didn't have a choice. These people didn't have a choice. And every one of their employers matched their contribution. This is not a gift. This is our money. And for us, I feel like this is the line in the sand. This is total theft of money that is not theirs. And for them, two of my sisters will not be able to pay their bills if they don't get their Social Security check. Two of my sisters. So my question is this. As seniors, again, say, line in the sand. It doesn't cross this. I don't care if you're Republican, Independent, Democratic. This is money you were promised, and I want my money. My question is, what do seniors and other people, because you don't have a choice either. If you're employed, you're paying in. What is the one thing we can do to make this happen?
Well, you're doing well. You're speaking out. We should just put that on social media. It'll go viral around the country. But I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right that the basic point is this is your money. This is money that people have paid into Social Security. Now, for Howard Lutnick, he's a billionaire, whatever, but he says, oh, my mother-in-law won't notice if there was a check that didn't come for a month and she gets it later. Maybe she wouldn't because he's well off. And I don't even begrudge him his money. I begrudge him his tone deafness. I begrudge him that he doesn't know enough people who rely on Social Security to make ends meet, to be able to pay their mortgage, to be able to pay their rent. And what they had done with closing these Social Security offices, that's why so many of us were livid that Schumer didn't even get a commitment to keep those Social Security offices open. And they're firing Social Security staff. So you may be okay if you're already getting Social Security, but if you need to sign someone up for disability, or if you're turning 65 and need to sign up, there's now a delay. This is the red line. The cuts to Social Security, the cuts to Medicaid, the cuts to Medicare, the cuts to our education, these things are going to enrage the American people. Many people, I'm always amused by people who say, oh, I don't like the federal government, but I love Medicare. Well, they're going to find out what happens when that federal government is dismantled by billionaires, and they're going to remember that it was Democrats from FDR to Lyndon Johnson, from John F. Kennedy to Barack Obama, who built the government that is building the middle class. And that is going to be the message that our country needs to hear.
Congressman.
I'm for that. I often say to folks, I say to my colleagues, half jokingly and half seriously, there are more billionaires in my district than in any other district in America. If I can be for taxing them more, how is this a hard vote for the 434 other members of Congress?
Congressman, we have here Najib from Fremont on free speech on college campuses.
Hi, Congressman. I'm currently a third-year undergraduate at the University of Chicago, also an econ major.
I went there.
Yeah, I know.
They remember me? I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
And in the past few months, I've noticed a considerable shift in the way that students and the school administration approaches free speech. And I know international students personally that have left this country and are not coming back for the foreseeable future because they have been advised that staying would put them at risk of being deported because their area of study may conflict with what this administration finds is acceptable. And for me, this is a pretty big deal. It sounds like a pretty big deal because these are people that I know and I study with. You know, first it was the immigrants without papers. Now it's the immigrants with papers that say the wrong thing. And I'm fearful for who's next. And I'm wondering what the response is from the Democratic Party, because for me, this has been pretty insufficient so far, and for me, it seems like a pretty big deal.
Well, I appreciate your speaking out. The hypocrisy of J.D. Vance going to Europe and lecturing the Europeans about free speech. By the way, lecturing the Germans that they should have as free speech the Nazi party, the AfD party, when it was the United States as a condition of the Marshall Plan that required Germany's denazification. Of course, they don't remember the history. But J.D. Vance goes and lectures the Europeans about free speech, and then he sits there silently while a Columbia student who engaged in speech is without charges, detained, arrested, and we're told that he doesn't need to face any due process, and just because he said the wrong things, he could be deported. That is utter hypocrisy. In this country, we have a First Amendment. That First Amendment applies to all persons in the jurisdiction of the United States. It does not say all citizens. It does not say all green card holders. It does not say all visa holders. It says every person in the United States. And we need to be, as Democrats, speaking out, not just about the cuts to Medicaid, which are politically easy, not just about the price of eggs, but for our values. And those values include speaking up for people who may be immigrants who are engaged in speech and making sure that their First Amendment rights are protected. I certainly will continue to speak out for that.
With a question about the Oversight Committee.
So before my question, I just wanted to mention that as of March 13th, the FDA.gov has given recommendations to the vaccine manufacturers for the influenza vaccine. So they don't anticipate a delay in
That's good news.
or an impact. Now that's assuming FDA.gov is correct.
I always say I got the most educated district, so I appreciate that.
So, Representative Khanna, I have a question. What does the Oversight Committee do? And what is it doing to stop the dismantling of critical programs, agencies, and our democracy overall? Also, does the Oversight Committee have any power to go after the conflicts of interest with Musk and his billions of government?
We have the power. That's supposed to be the job of the Oversight Committee, to oversee government and to make sure that there aren't conflicts of interest, to make sure that the government executive branch is following Congress's laws. The problem is the Democrats have no power on that committee. Because the Republicans are in charge, James Comer gets to decide the agenda. And his agenda has, instead of holding Musk and Doge accountable, he and Marjorie Taylor Greene have been enabling them on the committee. And it's one of the most frustrating parts of the committee. I show up, I try to make our points, but until the Democrats are back in charge on that oversight committee, the reality is we have no formal power. What we can just speak out, we can get our voices heard, but that committee right now is protecting the administration. It isn't holding them accountable.
Congressman, we have Bob from San Jose with a question about government jobs. From Cupertino.
He's a veteran. I'm 100% veteran.
Thank you for your service.
My son is a 20% disabled veteran. My question, my concern is government jobs. What can we do to protect the jobs of the Veterans Administration and all the government agencies? My second issue is, when are we going to have a democratic letter to America and the world explaining what we're for and what they're against? I'm a Hopium Chronicles member. I say again, Hopium Chronicles. We need to support you on your people's town halls and all those that are being run throughout the country. My last question is, what else can I do to protect our democracy? Yes.
Well, first of all, sir, thank you for your service. It's always the veterans who understand, often most, what is at stake right now, because you wore the uniform to help protect our Constitution and our freedoms. And it's important, and I'll repeat this fact, 1/3 of the folks who work in the federal government are veterans. They're veterans. It is a program and they do incredible work. But if you really believe that after someone has been to Iraq, after someone has been to Afghanistan, after someone has been to defending us in Europe, that they come home and that they're working in their jobs at the Park Service or in the Health and Human Services Service or in NASA, and that they should be summarily fired, then that's what DOJ is doing. I don't believe that. I don't believe those are American values. And so what we need to do is to make it very clear, because I don't think the American people know that many of these people who are being fired are veterans. And the second thing we need to do is to make it clear that the federal government, our federal civil servants, aren't the problem in this country. Look, politicians, it's a different story. You know, they're just like us. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with politics in America. The big money, the contributions, the system. And the problem is people conflate their anger with the political class with the folks who are doing the work as federal civil servants. They're two different things. Federal civil servants are doing honorable work for the country. You have a problem with politicians, throw them out. Throw them out. Vote them out. But don't take that out on the people who are working every day. In terms of the message, and maybe I'll end with this point. I apologize having to leave at 2. I've got to get on a flight to be out down in Southern California. But, you know, I think about when I was coming here, I said to someone,
Leaders be out front and center during protests.
I'm sorry?
Will Democratic leaders be out front and center during protests? I'm also a veteran, right?
I appreciate that.
Disability as well.
I'm all for that. I've been out there. I just want the ones who are out there not singing off key. Some of the leaders.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
I think we need to be out there, and we should be out there front and center. And I have been out there. And
why are they not?
Well, many of them are getting there. And let me.
Our democracy is falling apart right now, and they're not doing it. I was there during Wall Street protests during Zuccotti Park. I grew up in New York City, and I was there every single day. The cops are cracking down on people, and that completely petered out, right? I was also traveling during the Black Lives Matter protests in D.C., and guess what? They had military vehicles parked all along the streets in D.C. with barriers, right, and keeping people out.
what are we going to do when the DOD is turned against us, right? They're gutting the DOD, right? They're gutting the FBI, right? What is the Democratic leaders doing about all that? They're expecting us civilians. So like for myself, right? I'm a millennial, right? I serve my country and I want to get out there and do something about it. But none of our leaders, I was taught, always lead from the front. Right? Be a leader, always lead from the front. Why are Democrats not doing that? And I'm a longtime Democratic voter, right? But I've really lost faith in the leadership.
I appreciate, first of all, your service, and you're doing that. I can say there are some of us, like Bernie Sanders and myself and others who have been out there in the town halls and the protests, showing up outside the federal agencies that have been cut, USAID. But you're saying, why aren't the Democratic leaders in the Congress, why aren't more people doing it? Frankly, I think it's some of the younger members, the members who've been there for 10 years or less are out there. And some of the members who've been there a long time are still stuck on principle, on niceties, and they don't understand that there's a different time. But the good news is that more and more members are getting out there, and they're seeing the example of those like me who are. And one of the things people here can do is just make sure that our Bay Area members of Congress feel inspired to get out there and do more. Because as the gentleman said earlier about Al Green, and while we may not have agreed fully on that, one thing I do agree with him on is that this is not a time where you can just vote or do the traditional speeches. We need legislators to be activists, just like we need citizens to be activists.
Daily press conferences.
And we all have to find our way of activism. As I was coming here, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, people are really angry in America, and they're really angry in my district. And some of you know, I was a co-chair of Bernie's campaign in 2020, and I saw, that 30,000 people, and his message, understandably, is one of anger at what's happening with the billionaire dismantling of government. And I said, should I just speak about the anger? And he said, well, you can speak about the anger for a lot of it, but make sure you do anger and aspiration. Because see, our veterans fought for this country. My grandfather spent 4 years in jail fighting for freedom in India with the Gandhi's independence movement. My late colleague John Lewis spent years fighting for civil rights and was beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Our veterans scaled the cliffs of Normandy to win freedom. We have deep challenges with Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Howard Lutnick, but we also have the deep tradition of democracy. We are inheritors of extraordinary sacrifice. We live in a community that is incredibly diverse, and it is for our community and our district to not just to fight, but to show people what this country was built on and what this country is capable of being. Because I believe when we do that, when we appeal to the decency of the American people, to the principles that built this country, to the principles that lurk inside all of us, to come together, to get past the polarization, past the hate, past the division, and to save the institutions we built, that we will break through in this country and inspire this country again. Thank you for being out here. Thank you for being as active as you are.